Today I want to share with you the top 7 foods to stock up on now for your prepper pantry. Hi sweet friends, I'm Mary and welcome to Mary's Nest, where I teach traditional cooking skills for making nutrient-dense foods like bone broth, ferment, sourdough, and more. So if you enjoy learning about those things, consider subscribing to my channel and don't forget to click on the little notification bell below. That'll let you know every time I upload a new video. Well, I have lots of information to share with you, and as usual, you know I like to be very thorough. So if you open up the description underneath this video, you will see timestamps addressing what I'm going to discuss. So if you do want to jump ahead or jump around, it'll make it very easy for you to do. Also, while you're in that description underneath the video, be sure to look for the link to the blog post that corresponds to this video. That'll take you over to my website, Mary's Nest, same name as my YouTube channel, where I'll have a lot more detailed information with links to various associations where you can read more about supply chain shortages and so on and so forth. Now, why these 7 specific foods? The reason is these are the 7 that are experiencing the most shortages. And so I wanted to bring this to your attention as soon as possible. Now, most of these items apply to most of us. At the end of this video, I have a few bonus items that I want to share with you that often fit a certain niche or a specific need. So keep an eye out for those. Now, what I'm going to be addressing specifically are those items that have been written about by the National Grocers Association. Now, that's here in the United States. However, from what I've read, many of these problems are worldwide, but you will want to check specifically in your country, if you live out of the United States, as to what items may be in short supply or becoming in short supply in the future in your particular country or even in your particular area. Because even here in the United States, what you may experience a shortage of on the East Coast may be different than the West Coast, may be different than in the middle of the country for the rest of us. So there are some variations, but overall, these particular 7 items have been affected the most. Now, why might some of these items be in short supply? The reason is twofold, and even then some. Some of it begins with labor shortages, and some of it begins with supply chain shortages. And that can include anywhere from going all the ways back to growing or manufacturing certain items, then to processing them in factories, and then getting them delivered to warehouses and distribution centers, and then getting them delivered to grocery stores from those warehouse distribution centers. So there's a lot of moving parts, and shortages are being experienced in all these different parts. And actually, in the first item we're going to discuss, there's actually a shortage of what's needed to put the food in to then be able to bring it to market. So there's a lot of things involved, but basically all we as consumers need to know is that there's labor shortages and there's supply chain shortages. But the most important thing that I want to share with you, there's never any need to panic, and there's never any need to hoard or do anything like that. Basically, what you're going to want to do, if you need these products and you see them on the shelf at your grocery store, add 1 or 2 extra to your shopping cart and just do this on a weekly basis. And another tip that I want to share with you is that if you can, try not to be brand loyal. Your particular brand may not be available. And something you need to keep in mind is that it may never be coming back, at least not in the near future, in the foreseeable future, because many grocery lines have cut back because of their own labor shortages and supply chain shortages. Many grocery lines have cut back on the variety of products that they're offering. So if there's something that you buy by brand X and you don't see it anymore, or it seems to always be empty when you look for it on the shelf, try brand Y. I am not brand loyal at all. I think I've shared this with you many times in the past. I buy what's on sale, I buy what's available, I buy what I have a coupon with, and so on and so forth. And I'm always, as you know, about the budget, and I'm always trying to save money. So I think if you find that you can be brand flexible and also product flexible. If you're used to eating one particular thing, but there's something that's similar, try that. Flexibility and staying in your budget and doing this little by little as you stock your prepper pantry is going to make all the difference in the world in terms of lowering your own personal stress level, and you're going to be way ahead of the game. Now, I just want to take a minute to speak to the beginner who's new here and maybe new to the term prepper pantry. First, let's talk about the broad term pantry. When I use the word pantry, I'm referring to what I call the Four Corners Pantry. And what is the Four Corners Pantry? It's those four areas that we store food in. We have our working pantry, which is the first corner. That's either a closet or a cupboard in your kitchen that you access on a daily basis. Next is your refrigerator, then your freezer, and then your extended pantry, or what we often nickname the prepper pantry. And so what is the prepper pantry? The prepper pantry is that area where we store backup food or extra food that we then use to restock our working pantry. They're non-perishable foods that have a good shelf life and that allow us to build up backup supplies in the event that we can't go grocery shopping for a whole host of reasons. It could be weather, it could be illness, it could be job loss, it could be like a national emergency or a quarantine like we've been going through. So it's all of these things that you are preparing for, that you're prepping for. And by having your prepper pantry or your extended pantry well stocked, you then can restock your working pantry as you start to run low on supplies. And how much food you want to have in your prepper pantry is really up to you. You may just want a 2-week supply. You may want a 2-month supply, 6-month supply, so on and so forth. Whatever the case may be, it's really just something you're going to build slowly over time, and that you're going to be able to stock up on things when they go on sale or you have a coupon or so on and so forth. So not only does it help you always be prepared, in the long run it helps you save money. And I have an extensive playlist on how to build the prepper pantry, how to properly store things in your pantry to extend their shelf life, and how to be prepared for emergencies, and what to do if you have no electricity, what to do if you have no water. I have a very extensive playlist, and I will be sure to link to that in the iCards and in the description below, so that if this is a new concept to you, you can start watching those videos and catch up. And keep in mind, they're not going to make you panic. I address this subject very calmly, and I show you the easy way to do these things so that what you're stocking are foods that you are going to eat, and then I also show you how to use those foods that you stock to make nutritious meals. And if you head over to my website, I have what I call the Essential Traditional Foods pantry list, and I think that that will be very helpful, especially if you're new on this journey, moving away from buying processed foods and wanting to create more of a traditional foods kitchen where you make more things homemade. That's a free list. It's 36 pages. It's very, as I say, essential, but it's going to go over all of the foods that you want to consider over time stocking in your Four Corners pantry. I address all areas of the pantry, but these are foods that you'll want to consider stocking as you create more of a traditional foods kitchen. And you can easily print that out and add it to your kitchen journal, or you can download it to your phone and then you have it when you go to the grocery store, or you can just read it online. It's very flexible, and I think you're going to find that it's going to be extremely useful, because not only do I list the foods that you want to consider stocking, I also have links throughout the 36 pages to all of the various items that you can make homemade. And then I have links to recipes that show you how to use those items to then make meals. Now, the first food that you want to stock up on now are canned goods. You may have noticed some empty shelves when you go down the canned aisle at your grocery store. And the reason is not just labor shortages and not just supply chain shortages. There's actually, at least here in the United States, a short supply of aluminum to make the can. So this is where I really stress, don't be brand loyal. Buy what you can find, and hopefully maybe it'll be on sale or maybe you'll have a coupon for it. But you may find that the particular canned good that you usually buy is not available to you because maybe the manufacturer of your particular food is not able to get enough cans because the aluminum supplier is in short supply of supplying the factory that makes the cans. For example, we really like to have some canned pears. Now, I home can pears, and I've showed you how to water bath canned pears, which is very easy to do, but I also like to keep canned pears from the grocery store on hand. However, lately, there just haven't been a lot of canned pears at our grocery store. So instead, I got some fruit cocktail, and what I do is I look for those that are packed in 100% juice. I really try to avoid those that are packed in the syrup because it's often high fructose corn syrup, and that's something we really try to avoid in our traditional foods kitchen. But in any event, this had a coupon, and I was happy to get this so that at least I have some backup fruit for when my home canned fruit runs low, or something that's just very easy for my family to deal with if for any reason I'm under the weather and they just want to have a can that they can pop the top open and enjoy. I also want to mention something about organic products. I never want you to feel pressured that you have to buy anything organic. Buy what's in your budget. I don't believe in going over your grocery budget. That causes stress. Stress is not good for us. You heard me say this before if you've been with me a while. And the whole reason we're trying to transition to a traditional foods kitchen and eat better is to improve our health. And stress is not going to improve our health. And many of you have said, oh, Mary, we notice that you always have a lot of organic products when you talk about stocking the pantry. And that is true. And the only reason that is the case is because I live in Central Texas. We have a wonderful supermarket here called H-E-B. Those of you who live here know about it. And they are on a mission to carry as many organic products as they can and also to carry them at a very fair price. Basically just a store brand price. This is the H-E-B brand and it's very affordable. And it also happens to be organic. So, but again, I will buy what they have in stock and what's on sale or what I have a coupon for. And so when I'm stocking my prepper pantry, where I do keep canned goods, whether they're store-bought canned goods or home canned goods, I basically just stock what I need, what we eat, and if, like for example, pears are out of stock, fruit is fruit, really, in my opinion. And so I'll just pick up some canned mixed fruit like this and not worry about it and move on. We have food. And I'm not going to be brand specific or very highly product fussy specific, I should say, if there's no pears and they have peaches or so on and so forth. That's basically my philosophy when it comes to shopping during supply chain shortages and also when the budget is very tight. Right now things are getting very expensive at the grocery store and our food budgets are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So sometimes you have to make substitutions and that's okay. And I really feel that maybe those of you out there who are feeding children will relate to this. I think the earlier you expose children to the fact that there's going to be different foods and they're going to be from different brands and we're not going to be fussy and we're going to be very open-minded. I think the younger you can start them thinking that way, the easier it is on those of us who are the home cooks. Also too, don't be afraid to experiment. My grocery store, this is something new that I hadn't seen before, but they were running a special, and so we took advantage of that, and we got some of these. Even though I make homemade baked beans, and I make homemade pinto beans, all sorts of things like that. And I have recipes for homemade pinto beans. I'll be sure, if that's something that interests you, I'll be sure to link to that. But what I want to share is that we experimented, and I like to keep things like this on hand. Again, if I'm busy or I haven't gotten around to making something, we can easily open something like this if I'm not home. This is very easy for my husband or my husband and my son, if he's home with us as well, to open up. So these are sort of the kind of things that are very handy to keep in your prepper pantry and to be keeping an open mind about what is available and what is a good buy for you. And there's something very important that I want to say right now before we proceed on to item number 2. I was recently reading an article that was in the newspaper. My husband actually spotted it and passed it on to me because he knew it would be of interest to me, because it was about the pantry. Now, I'm a firm believer in doing a good pantry inventory and knowing what you have, and always remember to use, when it comes to all of your foods, the first in, first out method, so that you're constantly rotating everything, and that even though many items do have very long shelf lives, you do want to always be rotating best you can to use what you put into your pantry first before you use what you put in last. This article was talking about streamlining, and I think it goes along with all of these minimalist and paring down sort of books and topics that often become very popular at the beginning of the year. And they were talking about really scale back your pantry, don't keep a lot on hand. And I got to be honest with you, I read the article and I was saying to myself, what are these people thinking? We've been going through a national emergency for almost 2 years now, and it doesn't seem like it's letting up anytime soon, and now things are expensive and there are shortages. This is not the time to worry about cutting back and cleaning out and giving a lot of, especially kitchen tools away. Kitchen tools items have become very expensive. So have a discerning eye. When you look at your pantry, organize, be very efficient, and when you look at the tools and equipment you use in your kitchen, certainly if you haven't used something in 20 years, don't worry about it. You can definitely donate it to someone who will make good use of it. But overall, have a discerning eye and say, you know, I need these things, I use these things. Okay, maybe I only use this twice a month or whatever the case may be, but I would have a very discerning eye, and I wouldn't rush to minimalize right now, because I don't think this is the time to be doing that. This is the time to really organize and be very efficient and know what you have on hand and be prepared, because we really don't know, at least for the foreseeable future, what is coming down the pike, as they say. We don't know if prices are going to continue to increase, we don't know if there are going to be shortages, and we don't know if there's any more illness heading our way. So best to be prepared and not decide to minimalize at this time. Now, one thing that I want to mention before we move on to number 2, glass. Glass is always in good supply. At least here in the United States, we've got plenty of glass. Everybody recycles glass, and we got a lot of glass. And if you can't find, say, for example, tomatoes, and you need some tomato sauce, this is just a plain tomato sauce, look for it in glass. Now, keep in mind, there may even be some shortages of things that are in glass, not because there's a shortage of glass, but because there's a shortage of workers, and then there are the supply chain issues. But glass can always, items that are sold in glass can always be an option. And if you garden, and you've been following along with me on my garden adventures in previous years and my home canning adventures, you know you can also learn to home can your tomatoes, and it's very easy to do. You can water bath can them if you haven't ventured into pressure canning yet, and I show you how easy that is to do in a video, and it's for the beginner. I walk you through step by step by step, and I go very slowly. And so if that's something that interests you as we go into the warmer months and you start growing your own fruits and vegetables, and you want to start learning how to can your own tomatoes, I think you'll find that video very helpful, and I'll be sure to link to that. Number 2, carbonated beverages. And let me say, these are all things that we just buy and enjoy, and nothing I'm showing you in this video today is a sponsored post. They're just the items that I actually keep in my pantry. If you've been in the beverage aisle at your grocery store, you may notice things can be very spotty at times. We really enjoy these Zevia sodas. They're sweetened with stevia, so there's no sugar in them. So they're low in calories, and they're just naturally flavored, which I really like. And these have no caffeine, which is wonderful. This one does have caffeine. It's sort of a, you know, like a cola, type soda, and so every once in a while if I'm a little tired and I feel like I just need a little energy, I enjoy having one of these. But these, at least at our grocery store, again, because of the aluminum shortage, the same problem we had with the canned goods, these can often be in very short supply. And every once in a while we'll see a case of these and we'll pick it up, but they go very fast. So if this is something you like, you definitely want to stay on top of that and have your little backup if you enjoy these as a treat. Now, keep in mind, these are the brands that we like. However, you will probably notice, because I have noticed this at my grocery store, a lot of carbonated beverages are in short supply. We picked this up. We hadn't had this before, but it was on sale. It's an Italian sparkling water that's flavored. This was actually in short supply. This one is the Perrier in the can. We hadn't seen Perrier in the bottles for a long time, and this is nice too sometimes after dinner to enjoy. It's sort of like a digestive, as my Italian mother says. But so we saw a case of this actually in the clearance section. The box had been opened and I think maybe 1 or 2 cans was missing, and they had marked it down quite nicely. It was very affordable. However, when we go through the main aisle, we see all of these things very sparse. And so if we need them, we'll buy a case, or we'll buy it. These all come in 6-packs. Sometimes there's no case available, and we'll just get the 6-pack. So if you like carbonated beverages, you may want to stock up. Next time you're at your grocery store, buy an extra 6-pack or 2, or buy a case if you can find it, of whatever carbonated beverage you enjoy. Next, I want to talk about 2 items together. These are items number 3 and number 4 of the top foods you should buy now. I know in many cases these may be considered luxuries, but for some of us they are necessities. Number 3 is chocolate. Number 4 is coffee. Now, I actually don't feel guilty about sharing these, because many scientific studies have shown us that chocolate and coffee in many cases can actually be very good for us, especially dark chocolate. The reason that coffee and chocolate are in short supply goes beyond labor shortages and supply chain shortages. These items have been exposed to different weather conditions that have limited some of their growing ability. So that's why when you're at your grocery store, you might notice that the coffee available looks a little slim, or the selection of chocolates look a little slim. So when you can find those particular coffees or chocolates that you like, I know in these cases sometimes people are brand loyal. I certainly like this type of coffee, but I'm very flexible if I can't find it. You know, I'm just happy to have some coffee. However, what I like to do is to keep my eye open for those particular brands that I do like in coffee or chocolate, and try to stock up on them when I see them available. These are coffee beans that I like to buy, and I find these at Sam's Club. And the reason I like to stock coffee beans is because they have a longer shelf life than coffee that's already been ground. However, I do keep some ground coffee on hand, because if I'm sick, most of the time I'm very healthy, but those of you who have been following my posts on the community page over on YouTube know that in the month of December I had the flu. And when I'm sick, if I'm not able to grind the coffee beans, I like to make things very easy for my family, especially my husband and also my son when he's home. He enjoys coffee also. And so I keep some caffeinated coffee as well as some decaf coffee on hand. And these are already ground, and it makes it very easy for them to prepare coffee. So I usually like to have a little bit of both. And what I do when I see chocolate on sale, I just will use the coupon and I'll buy it. I like this Lindt chocolate. I mean, there's so many varieties, but this one is very easy for me to find at my grocery store. And they usually have a fairly good stock of this, although I've noticed it is getting a little less, and there's been a few less varieties. And I basically try to buy chocolate that has over a 70% cocoa or cacao ratio to it, because the darker the chocolate, the better it is for us. And if you've heard me talk about Dr. Andrew Weil and his books like Spontaneous Healing and whatnot, he often talks about how, and he's well into his 80s now, how he is, I've often called him the father of integrative medicine. Although he's a medical doctor educated at Harvard, he's also a proponent of integrative medicine and using things like coffee, chocolate, and home remedies to boost our health overall, in addition to modern medicine. And he often talks about always eating a little dark chocolate after dinner, so I like that. And sometimes I'm not so fussy. This intense orange, I'm not really sure what the percentage on this one is, but it looked very flavorful, and I couldn't resist this. If you look for this, I will tell you. Again, none of this is sponsored. I just love these things. This one has a touch of sea salt. It's delicious. And as you'll see, I've enjoyed some already. But in any event, so if you see coffee and chocolate and you see the brands that you like and they're in stock, this is the time to stock up on them, because we may see dwindling supplies as we go forward, and you may have to be a little flexible on what type of coffee and chocolate you enjoy. So number 3 and number 4, stock up on your chocolate and your coffee. And while we're on the subject of coffee, this comes up so much in comments and in email. Mary, why do you have 2 coffee pots? You might notice one's kind of behind the coffee beans right now, but why do I have 2 coffee pots? I have 2 coffee pots because my husband likes decaf, and myself and my son, when he's home with us, like caffeinated. We're the high test gal. I'm the high test gal and he's the high test guy, our son. But my husband always goes with decaf. Number 5 is meat, poultry, and fish. Now technically, unless you home can, these don't go into your working pantry or your prepper pantry because they're not shelf stable. These are actually things I've taken out of my freezer. But you may have noticed at your local grocery store that meat products, poultry, fish are in shorter supply, or there may be limits on the quantities that you can purchase. I was very surprised on some of my last few shopping trips to Costco and Sam's at how light the selection was of poultry and of red meat. So that is something to keep in mind as you're shopping. You may want to add an extra chicken or some extra chopped meat or other cuts of beef that you enjoy using in your traditional foods kitchen, or if there's particular fish that you like. When you see it, you may want to stock up, and instead of maybe just buying what you would buy for that week, you want to buy a little extra for the following week or the week after that. So you start to build up a little bit of supply in your refrigerator or your freezer. And if you home can, these type of items need to be pressure canned. But if you can get a good buy on, say, chicken legs or chicken thighs or even a whole chicken, this may be a really good time to start consider pressure canning some of your meats. And also, if you find that there is very short supplies on these products at your local grocery store, don't hesitate adding canned versions of these items to your prepper pantry and your working pantry as well. You can get canned chicken, you can get canned meats, a variety of canned fishes. There's wonderful resources when it comes to canned foods for animal products. So don't turn your nose up to those. Those can come in very handy, and I have a lot of recipes where I show you how to use canned chicken and canned fish in a variety of recipes that are very tasty, that I'm confident you're going to enjoy, as well as your friends and family or whoever you're feeding will enjoy. Plus, I want to mention, I always encourage you to shop as locally as possible. But some of you have shared with me that you do like to shop online. Now, if you do like to shop online, always remember to check my shopping guide over on my website. I'll put a link to that in the description underneath this video. On my shopping guide, I share a lot of discount coupon codes with you that these various companies like US Wellness Meats and Vital Choice and Mockmill, the great people who make the wonderful grain mills, the electric grain mills, a lot of these companies have given me coupon codes that I then can give to you, my viewers, to help you save money. So if you are a fan of ordering online, definitely check that shopping guide and see what discount coupon codes you may be able to use over there. They range anywhere from 5% to, I believe, 15%, maybe even some a little higher. I have discount coupon codes for Lehman's, which is a wonderful store for those of us who are homesteading no matter where, whether we're city or suburban or country people. You know, I think we all enjoy shopping at Lehman's. So there's a lot of codes there that can help you save money. But again, try to look locally at your grocery store. And if the fresh chickens, the fresh meats, the fresh fish are in short supply or have restrictions on how much you can buy, or they're just simply out of stock, then turn to your canned meats and chickens and fish. They're wonderful resources to have in your prepper pantry. You'll always be prepared, and you can always make a meal using them with the recipes I share with you, as well as a host of recipes that are online for how to use these canned items to create great meals. Number 6 is pasta. You may notice when you go down the pasta aisle that those sections that carry the pastas that are from Italy may be very slim. You may not see a lot. And the reason is Italy was hit very hard during this period that we've been going through since 2020. And so that takes a while to get back up and running again and get shipments to the United States and so on and so forth. And other countries that receive pasta from Italy may find the same things. And then once things are here in the United States, you have situations again of the supply chain issues, the trucking issues, getting these things to the distribution centers from the ports where they're delivered, and then getting them to the grocery store. So the whole supply chain issue plays a role once the products from Italy do arrive on our shores. So again, I try to just be very flexible and buy whatever they have in stock. And again, I'm always looking for coupons or sales. This was a new brand that my grocery store was carrying, so I thought I'd try this. This ditalini, which I really love, especially for soups, I found in my clearance section. Always check your clearance section if your grocery store has a clearance section. Some grocery stores will have a whole clearance aisle, which must be fabulous. We have sort of end caps that carry clearance items, and I was able to get this for 60 cents. So definitely always keep an eye out for that. And then you've got things like this, couscous. This brand is made here in the United States, but again, pasta in terms of its manufacturing in the various factories due to labor shortages is in short supply, and then the whole supply chain issue of getting these things to distribution centers and then getting them to the grocery stores is problematic as well. So when you see different pasta items that you like and they're in stock, like I said earlier with some of the other items, rather than just buying what you may need for the week, buy 1 or 2 extra to stock your prepper pantry. Also, something that I want to share that is specific to those of us who live in the United States. If you buy pasta made from durum semolina wheat, that's what most pasta is made from. If you buy pasta made from durum semolina that's grown here in the United States, you may also be seeing shortages because, not unlike what we discussed with the coffee and the chocolate, weather conditions here in the United States have affected the growth patterns of durum semolina. And so you may find that some of the brands or the products that you've bought in the past that are made from durum wheat may not be as in plentiful supply because the durum wheat is in limited supply because of the effect, different weather patterns that affected some changes in the ability to grow durum wheat, of which semolina is a byproduct of durum wheat, which is what's used to make pasta. Semolina, if you're not familiar familiar with it, are basically the middlings. That's what they're referred to, the middlings of when durum wheat is milled into flour. And these little middlings, which are actually very nutritious, are used to make pasta. So that's something you want to keep in mind, because weather patterns can be unpredictable and can affect growing patterns and can affect shortages and price. So keep your eye open for what you can find in your pasta aisle, and if you enjoy having pasta in your meals, and you want to make sure that you always have a good supply in your working pantry and your pepper pantry, just add a few extra boxes or containers or packages whenever you see them available at the right price, and you'll be all set. Technically not a food, but a beverage, and a very important beverage. Number 7 is water. Bottled water specifically. Bottled water is one of those things that whenever there's bad weather or a national emergency like what we've been going through for a while now, there's always a shortage of bottled water. Bottled water, along with bread and eggs, are some of the things people tend to buy right away. And then when these situations are prolonged, they keep buying them and keep stocking up on them. So you may notice when you go down the beverage aisle, or if you have a separate water aisle at your grocery store, whatever the case may be, that there's often a very limited supply of what's available, as well as there may be limits on how much you can buy. And again, like with everything, there is always the labor shortage and the supply chain shortage that affects all of these things that need to be processed and manufactured and shipped out throughout a country, and so on and so forth. So that's sort of the overriding problem with all of these things. But it's these 7 foods, and in this case water, that I've discussed here, that are being hit the hardest. And so whenever you go grocery shopping, if your grocery store has bottled water in stock, and you know that you may need bottled water because of some particular situation, always just add an extra gallon or a case, even just a 6-pack of the smaller bottles. This is one thing I don't think you will ever regret stocking up on. And we found that it was exceptionally helpful that we had always added usually a gallon a week to our grocery cart, especially when we went through those very severe winter storms that we had here in Texas in February of 2021. In many cases, people were without heat or without water. Luckily, our water never stopped. However, we didn't have heat a lot on and off for about a week or so, but many of our friends and neighbors were without water. And it was so nice that we were able to share some of our supplies, like water, like firewood, things that do come in very handy in bad weather emergencies and in power outages and water main breaks and things like that. So because of everything that we have been struggling with over these last 2 years, and now going into this 3rd year, people have learned a lot. And I think that's the silver lining to all of this. People have learned a lot. People are not living just week to week with the groceries they have. So many people, I've heard from so many of you that you've started prepper pantries and you're starting to have backup food and backup water. So water is one of those things that during times like this often is in short supply because it sells out very quickly. And compounded with labor shortages and supply chain shortages, we just see shortages often on many things. And because water is something that, like the National Grocers Association shares with us and other organizations who track these things, say that these are one of the things that people buy right away. And sometimes people panic and then they start to hoard and then they start to really stock up, which once you have a prepper pantry, you never have to worry about that because you've been doing this little by little by little. And so because this is one of those items that people tend to panic buy, they're often out of stock. And so just start adding an extra bottle a week whenever you see it in stock at your grocery store, or an extra 2 bottles. Often, as I said, even at our grocery store, there are limits on how much you can buy. But just do this slowly, little by little, and you're going to find you're going to be in good shape with extra water in your prepper pantry. Okay, now on to some bonus items. Bonus item number 1, pet food and pet snacks. As I have personally witnessed at my own local grocery store, and as many of you have shared with me, the shortage of pet food and pet snacks, although I know these are kind of extras, but the shortage of pet food has really been significant. So I make sure that when I go to the grocery store and I see the food that our dog, or we have a puppy, likes to eat, I try to make sure I always have at least 1 extra bag of dog food. And we have a large dog, so we buy the large bag of dog food. But what I want to say about this is I was very surprised to notice that the brand that I buy, I like this Blue Wilderness, wasn't always available. And I started to realize that I may be in a situation where I've run out of the particular food that my dog is used to eating. And I don't want to just switch food overnight, because those of you who are pet owners, whether you have cats or dogs, know that that can really cause them some gastrointestinal problems. So what I've started doing is buying some other types of dog food. And I originally will just start out, oh, I think I've got this turned around. This is so cute with the puppies here. I originally will just buy little tiny bags. Sometimes my grocery store, since this is their store brand, and it's a very high quality brand, I was very impressed with it. This Heritage Ranch line, if you shop at H-E-B, they were giving out free sample bags. So I was able to test it, and they also sell very small bags. So you can test it and see if it's something your pet likes. But what I'll do is, our puppy will eat about 3.5 cups or more food a day. And I'll give most of this food and then maybe 1/2 cup of this food. I also have some other brands of dog food that I bought as backup. And I might do like 1/2 cup of this and 1/4 cup of that. And that's just the diet that I have gotten him used to over time. So that if for any reason I start running low on this and I find that I can't replace it, then I can increase some of these other dog foods that he's already been eating and is used to, and I know that he likes, and I know that it agrees with him, and so on and so forth. So that's just a tip that I wanted to share with you. And again, the reason that pet food is in short supply, it just falls back on the labor shortages at the dog food manufacturing plants, and then there's the whole supply chain shortage problem in terms of trucking and distribution. So, and pet food, I know those of us who love our pets are, I'm a little bit of a dog fanatic, but when it comes to having workers for factories that process human food, it can be the emphasis can be put on making sure there are workers there as opposed to those in pet food factories. So there are just shortages all around, but having some backup food as well as some maybe alternate food that you've found agrees with your pet, I think is very important. And the same is true of snacks. I think that it's always nice to have some snacks for your pets, and I often get these. They've got like oatmeal in them, and a lot of times these are on sale at my grocery store. There's coupons, which is nice. And this brand kind of goes with this brand, and the Heritage Ranch snacks go with this brand. But these are kind of similar. They both have a kind of an oatmeal base, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but our pup will go either way, and I introduce these to him alternately so that his digestive system is used to both of them. So if for any reason I can't find one, I can get the other. I've also got some other snacks. And so it's all about just making sure that you have options, and that options you've already tried out, and that options agrees with your pup, or in my case, a pup. Now, before we move on to bonus item number 2, I just want to mention to you that Earlier, when we were talking about bottled water, I mentioned that often some of the first things to empty out of the shelves during some sort of crisis is not only water, but also bread and eggs. Now, if you have never tried to make bread before, but it's something that you really want to learn how to do this year, be sure to check out the video where I show you how to make homemade sandwich bread. It is so easy, and it's literally almost foolproof. You mix the ingredients together, there's no kneading, you throw it in the pan, you let it rise, you bake it, and it's very similar when you slice it to what you would buy in that sleeve at the grocery store, that plastic sleeve of sandwich bread. And I'll be sure to link to that in the iCards and in the description below. That video has over 1 million views. So many of you have told me that you never made bread before and you made that and you can't believe it and you'll never buy bread again. So if you need sandwich bread, make that your resolution for this year, that you're going to learn how to bake bread. And I'm confident that's going to give you a real morale boost, because I can almost say with 100% certainty that you're going to be successful. Alrighty, bonus item 2 may give you a little bit of a chuckle, but it's liquor. Now you may laugh, those of you who know me know that we're not drinkers, but I do keep liquor on hand. Specifically, I keep vodka on hand, and I also keep some fortified wines like Marsala and Madeira and other wines like that I use as the acidic medium, so to speak, when I make bone broth, because you always need a little acid to help extract the nutrients, specifically the collagen, out of the bone. And when you extract that collagen and then you cook that bone broth, the collagen becomes gelatin, and that's what makes your bone broth so gelatinous. And it's that gelatin that we're after that's good for our hair, our nails, our skin, but especially for soothing our digestive systems and keeping us healthy. So that is why I tend to buy those. But I always like to keep some vodka on hand for making medicinal herbal tinctures. And I also like keeping vodka on hand for making flavored extracts like homemade vanilla extract. And you can also keep other liquors on hand, whiskey, bourbon, whatever you think you're going to need. And also something you want to keep in mind is that alcohol is wonderful for sanitizing. So in an emergency, if you had nothing else, you could use alcohol specifically, to sanitize a wound or a scrape or a cut, and work to try to help prevent infection. And if you want to learn how to make medicinal herbal tinctures, or you want to learn how to make your own flavored extracts, and I have a video where I show you how to make a total of 10 flavored extracts. And for the tincture recipe, I give you a master recipe, which makes it very easy for you then to adapt that to make any type of medicinal herb tincture that you might need. And I'll be sure to link to those videos in the iCards. And also, if I ever run out of room in the iCards, I always put everything in the description below. And I also put everything in the pinned comment, which I know is easier for some of you to access depending what device you're on. And why is alcohol or liquor in short supply? The reason, again, as we've discussed throughout this video, there are worker shortages, there are supply chain shortages, but it's kind of a funny reason. Liquor is one of those things that really flew off the shelves during these last few years. And so the demand has been exceedingly high, much higher than normal. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. I think we all need to get out in the fresh air and sunshine. But it's been an exceedingly high demand. And the distillers have not been able to keep up with the demand. And so if there are particular alcohols that you like to keep on hand and you see them in stock, depending on what state you live in here in the United States, there's different rules that vary from state to state, whether they can be sold at a liquor store or at a grocery store or at a government distribution center. I don't know, I think in Boston, I went to college in Boston, I think what they call them, the Packies or something like that. But in any event, if there are certain alcohols you want to keep on hand, look for them now, and when they are in stock, you'll want to stock up on them. Now, if you want to get started stocking your prepper pantry with real food and doing it for as little as $5 a week, be sure to click on this video over here where I have a full playlist where I walk you through step by step the easy way to do this, how to build your list, how to build your supply, how to do it with real food you can buy at the grocery store, and how to do it on a budget. And I'll see you over there in my Texas Hill Country Kitchen. Love and God bless.